Hi, it's Tom here from Augment Automotive. Just doing a quick video today to show you how to upgrade the firmware on your AugTronic ECU. So there's several parts to this process. Firstly, you need to get hold of the right tools and a copy of the firmware. You can do this by accessing our website. So you augmentautomotive.co.uk/support, and it will bring you through to our support page. And you just want to scroll down until you can see the software section, and you'll see the Augment Automotive firmware update there, which is a zip file. And in this instance, you will see there's two firmwares available. Both are zip files. So we're going to use the firmware update to version 1.01 here. So I'm just going to click that link. I've actually already done it, so I'm not going to do it again. You want to click that link. Also, click the link of the firmware you want, and you'll get these two zip files downloaded to your computer. So I'm just going to skip over to the folder where I've downloaded these zip files, and I've just extracted these into the same folder. So you can see here I've got the firmware update to version 1.01.exe and the AugTronic.bin file for version 1.1.3. So once you've got there, you're going to run the firmware updated tool. So you just want to double click that. You might get a warning, in which case you just want to accept that and let it run. The computer doesn't recognize the software. So once you've run it, you're going to get this window pop up. This is the firmware update tool, and it's this bit of software which actually communicates with the ECU and updates the firmware. So the firmware update for the AugTronic ECU is done over the serial port, over via Bluetooth or via USB. So at this point, it's expected that you've already been able to connect via USB or Bluetooth. We've got a guide on our website on how to do that. This one's been set up over Bluetooth and it's on COM4, so I'm just going to hit open serial port. When I do that, if it all works, I'm going to get this serial port open successfully message. And that means it's opened up the serial connection to the ECU. Now at this point, it's likely the ECU is going to be in what we call run mode, which is its normal operational mode for running the engine. The ECU has a second mode of operation called update mode, and that's used exclusively for updating the firmware on the ECU. So what we need to do is put the ECU into update mode. If the engine's running, that's going to kill the engine, so do it in your garage or parked up somewhere safe. I wouldn't recommend you do it away from home in case something goes wrong with the update process, so do it somewhere you're comfortable. So I'm just going to hit the update mode. You're going to get a warning, and it's also going to tell you that following completion of the firmware update, you've got to put it back in run mode to resume normal operation. If you don't, the engine just won't start. You also won't be able to talk to it via our 3D tuner program either, so just make sure you remember to put it back in run mode. So you can hit OK, and that's going to send some data to the ECU. So we can see send packets is now 1. Now at this point, we don't know if the ECU has actually gone into firmware update mode, so we can just use this little ping bootloader button, and when we do that, we get a sent packet and we get a receive packet from the ECU. So I can just tap that and we can see that the ECU is responding and is ready for its firmware update. So now we just hit update firmware, we get another little message. This one says do not remove power from the ECU. So if you remove power from the ECU, the firmware update is going to fail. Now it's not the end of the world, because you can just reconnect to the ECU and it should still be in firmware update mode. So it's a pretty safe process, but the one thing you do not want to do is put the ECU back into run mode before you have completed a successful firmware update. The potential is if you do put it in run mode and you haven't fully upgraded the firmware, like if the power was cut off halfway through, then you're going to brick the ECU and you're going to have to send it back to us. So I'm going to hit OK, and that's going to pop up a window where we can select the file. This isn't the file that was in the folder you saw before, but it will do, so I'm just going to flash this one. The update files, the firmware update files for AugTronic are .bin files. So if you've downloaded a file, a firmware, and it's in a zip, you need to extract that zip file first and then browse to the right folder. and find that bin file. So when I've selected that one, I can either click open, I can also double click it. So I'll just double click it. And now you'll see the send and receive packets hopefully counting up, and a message here saying AugTronic binary file write in progress. So we're just going to wait for that to complete. It doesn't take very long, 30 seconds or so. And you should get a message saying firmware upgrade completed successfully, which is what's happened in this instance. So that's good. That basically means the ECU's taken the firmware and it's just still sat in update mode. So now we're just going to hit run mode. We'll get a message again just asking us to confirm and just reminding us that it shouldn't be done in the event of a failed code update. So we've not had a failure, so I'm going to click OK. Right, now that's put the ECU back in run mode. So what I usually do is I just power cycle the ECU at this point. Close down the firmware update tool. And then quite often I will check that the firmware version I've put on is the correct one. So I've just got 3D Tuner opened up here. Remember to shut down the firmware update tool, because if you're connected via Bluetooth or USB, then it will hog the connection. So once you've loaded up 3D Tuner, again you can download this from our website. It's probably a zip file as well, so you would need to extract the zip file and then just run the executable file to run the 3D Tuner application. Now when you've done that, you go to communications, select your COM port, in this case it's COM4. So I hit that and we'll get a flash from the icon up here, and then we want to hit load ECU. So we've got a bunch of dials that we'll get rid of here for a second. So all we want to do at this point is see if we've got the right firmware version. So if we're going to hit about, we'll get this little window that tells us a bit about the software, but it also tells us the version of the ECU code. So that's 1.14. So that's the right code version. So we've just checked really that we've got the right ECU firmware, and we have. So that's a successful update process. And that brings us to the end of this video. Hopefully that was helpful. If you've got any questions about how to do this, just drop me an email, support or sales@augmentautomotive.co.uk, and we'll get back to you with some help. Thanks.